Cool. Okay, so we can start with, I can introduce Mikko Honkanen here. You are the co-founder of Vainu. And today's topic obviously is discussing about how the sort of standard industry classifications, ICP, and when we talk about specific industries like SaaS, well, you can't find those in standard industry classifications. So what do you do? How do you do efficient sales and marketing? But that's the thing we want to answer today. But Mikko, we could kick off with a more general question here. Like when we talk about ideal customer profile or ICP, how would you describe what an ICP is and why does it matter?
Yes, yeah. Hi everyone. ICP, I think at least everyone who's working in sales ops or revenue ops, they most likely know the term ideal customer profile, and I feel also salespeople and team leads and customer success professionals, they talk about ICP these days. For me, it's in a way it's defining what type of customers we want to attract, what type of customers we want to do business with. And typically, obviously, you have certain criteria. The most traditional ones are firmographic data points, location of the company, the industry they're in, the company size, maybe sometimes the technology stack that they have, and so on. So you have plenty of criteria that you use, but the goal is to define what type of customers you want to do business with. And I guess the underlying reason is that when you analyze your own performance, you typically see better financial outcomes with the companies that are part of that ICP segment compared to the ones that are sort of outside the ICP segment. That's how I see it.
Well, this sounds like a very powerful, impactful concept. You've dealt with thousands, maybe tens of thousands of companies in your career. Do you see that a lot of companies are applying the sort of concept of ICP to their own sales and marketing activities, or like is it more like it's talked about but it's not really used in practice?
I think especially like for example SaaS companies, I would imagine almost all of them they talk about it and they also are implementing it. It's definitely one of those sort of industry sales buzzwords, just like playbook used to be one of them, buyer persona used to be one of them. Now everybody is talking about ICP. I think software companies, SaaS businesses, they're implementing it, using it. Then if we look at more traditional companies, maybe it's quite new concept for them still. But I mean, there's obviously some companies that are doing an excellent job with that. They have an ICP and people actually follow it. And people don't sell to companies that are outside that ICP. But also we have lots of examples where there is an ICP definition, but you still can sell to basically anyone. So then the question is that really having an impact, that ICP definition, if people are not following it? But I think, and even if we think of Vainu, in the early days, we sold to lots of different type of companies. Any B2B business was sort of fine to be as a customer, but when we looked at net retention numbers and how successful our customers are, we started to see that it's clearly those B2B companies that are using HubSpot, Pipedrive, Salesforce. Those are the ones that are most successful with our services, and simply by focusing on that segment, it's so good for the business, for growth and retention figures, and also more fun for the product team, because when they know that, okay, this is the audience we're serving and these are the companies we're building software for. So I think it's highly useful, and especially SaaS businesses are using it a lot.
So we talked a lot about you talked a lot about the sales approach. So sales understands ICP or sometimes they don't, but what about then the rest of the organization? If we talk about marketing and sales working together, have you seen, like for us at Vainu, it's pretty obvious. We follow the same ICP. Do you feel that it's done in other companies? And if not, how should they go about improving that situation?
I think there needs to be an ownership. I think it's quite easy if you have sales ops or revenue ops team in place, because they're working with marketing, they're working with sales, they work with customer success, and best case they also work with product managers. So then everybody is aligned around that ideal customer profile. But of course, if you don't have sales ops, if you don't have a clear ownership, I mean, then sales might have one ICP that they feel that there's good momentum with this type of customers, and those are the ones they're selling to. And then maybe customer success is feeling that, well, it's actually slightly different when they look at their best performing segments, and then marketing can do something completely different. So, but I think it starts from alignment and defining the ownership. Another aspect is also that you need to have sort of the data available so that you can create that ICP. It should be visible in your CRM, in your marketing automation. The moment when you get a new lead or the moment when you prospect a new company, you should know right away if it's part of the ICP or not. Like otherwise, if you need to do lots of research and start thinking, is this an ICP company or not, people won't follow it. But it comes down to actually having that information at your fingertips whenever you do sales, marketing, or work with customers.
Exactly. I think that because we use HubSpot as our CRM and marketing automation. So here's an example. Marketing and sales, we use the same filters when we create lists of companies, basically. So that pretty much aligns us because we use the same data, same filters. So the actions we do are always directed at the same audience.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, almost always in ICP definition, I think the most commonly used criteria are company size. Very often you have like an enterprise team, or maybe you have an enterprise offering, and then the number of employees plays a huge role. Sometimes you have a regional business. I don't know, maybe recruitment services, maybe those are both locally. So then actually the location and where the HQ is located is super important. And then the third one is industry, of course, industry vertical. And I mean, that's one of the topics today, that if you use standard industry codes, but you want to target e-commerce or SaaS or artificial intelligence businesses, I mean, you don't find them from standard industry codes. So that's why I think all these data vendors like Vainu, we need to do a good job so that we can actually serve and provide that ICP for customers and users.
That seems to be one clear problem when searching for the ICP accounts. Are there any other common problems that companies experience when they are like building the list, searching for the ICP accounts?
I think number one is definitely the industry vertical. If you have a specific industry vertical you want to go after, and I would imagine we have lots of SaaS people in the audience, and quite often SaaS companies are targeting other SaaS companies. And I think the reason is that SaaS companies are in general early adapters, so they know how to implement technology, they know how to get value out of technology. So then like finding SaaS businesses, finding specific type of SaaS businesses, it's tough unless you have the data. Then also understanding buying centers sometimes might be difficult when defining the ICP. Who's actually making the decision? Is the decision made in the HQ location or in other countries where the companies are operating? Like where is the actual decision being made? But then you also have sometimes it's not about the company like firmographic data. It's about the journey of the company or the stage of the journey they're in. Maybe you have a service that typically is needed right after the funding round, or right after you have opened up a new international location, or maybe it's when the company is going through an acquisition process. That's when it's needed. So you need to analyze your own products, own service offering, and then try to see like what is the real ICP for you. Also, a good starting point is to look at the best performing customers. Like, is there lots of similarities between those customers that are actually getting the value of your service and most likely also growing in value? So existing customers are a good starting point, of course.
So you want to want to use the sort of firmographic data, let's say the static data, and then it was interesting you mentioned about the sort of dynamic data, the changes that are happening within the ICP account. So, if a company is recruiting heavily, and they don't have an applicant tracking system, would that be a moment when you should reach out to them? Or let's say you find that companies that have recently done mergers are excellent because there's a lot of things that need to be solved after mergers. So that's when it's a good time to make your outreach.
I have a great example. I mean, for example, at Vainu, we have these days highly successful SDR team. So a team of people, and they, of course, they line up meetings for account executives. The number one, the best performing sort of trigger event for them is that our ICP is B2B companies that are data driven, and they use Salesforce, HubSpot, or Pipedrive. So we have this automated workflow that every time when we detect a new, for example, SaaS company that is using HubSpot, we automatically create a task in HubSpot for the SDR to reach out. And then we can, of course, autofill also sort of the approach, the messaging that, hey, with this account, with this prospect, this is most likely the most powerful approach you can have. And then as an SDR, you walk into the office, you open up your task view in HubSpot, and you have, let's say, 10, 15 opportunities at the beginning of the day. We've seen extremely good hit rate with those, and that's why the best SDRs, think about it, more than 130 booked meetings a month. More than 130. So that's, I mean, it's 20 business days. And I mean, we do international business, and when they reach out, and they reach out by phone, when they get those tasks, like hitting numbers that are north of 100, I think it's extremely good. And of course, AEs and I guess everybody in the company likes it a lot because that's good for pipeline development. That's sort of one trigger, even though it's not that something happened. Maybe somebody implemented HubSpot, or maybe they implemented Salesforce, but they seem to be open. There seems to be a window of opportunity that opens up, and important that you try to figure out what's that window of opportunity for your own business.
I can imagine with a very successful SDR team, a very good sort of indicator or goal or sort of starting point is that the SDRs are fed with new prospects all the time. So how does that happen? How do you make sure that the SDRs are like there's stuff on their plate all the time?
Yeah, but if you have the ICP definition done, then I mean today you can automate the prospecting. When I started in sales, I mean prospecting was something that you did late in the evenings, early in the morning, during lunch hour, and you always sort of had that pressure that I need to find more because I have my activity quota that I need to hit. But if you have defined your ICP, then you can use any of these vendors like Vainu or any other provider that has the data, and then just create a workflow that every time when the vendor is detecting a new company that meets the criteria, send it to me, create a task or notify me in my CRM. Then you have technically and in practice automated prospecting. And then, of course, you can look at the results and keep fine-tuning what type of notifications, what type of companies you want to get sent to you. But you can automate that prospecting piece, which is nice because then you can focus on those things that actually create value in the sales process. Having good discovery calls, having demos where you sort of tailor the demo for the context of the customer.
So let's say that you want to implement this type of process, but today's topic, of course, is that how to find these SaaS companies. So let's say that you're relying on the traditional standard industry codes. What's the sort of problem with when we think about these standard industry codes and SaaS companies? What's the issue with specifically like SaaS companies?
Yeah. I mean, it's no secret we're building an offering for SaaS businesses. So that's why I've been speaking with lots of SaaS companies lately. And yeah, it's surprising that how often they want to find other SaaS companies. So SaaS it's not part of standard industry classification. We all know that. In the Nordics, those classification systems were introduced 2007, 2008, and I think in other parts of the world they're also 10, 15 years old. There's actually a project going on, at least in the European Union at the moment, that there will be a new taxonomy, new standard industry code taxonomy being introduced. I think it will be in action 2025. But the issue is that companies, when they register the business, they have to pick one industry. And what if you're, let's say, recruiting SaaS, you're building application tracking system, do you pick software or do you pick recruiting? Or if it's a full suite HR system, do you pick employee benefits? Do you pick human resources? And you often just pick one. So then, and those are quite high level industry codes. So then your company is either software or human resources or recruiting, but you don't have a combination of them. And that's why we introduced Vainu Custom Industry, because you can just go in and pick SaaS companies. And if you want to find recruiting SaaS businesses, then you add recruiting and you can continue. I mean, we have more than 900 industry verticals in our taxonomy, and it covers these modern industries. Another one that people often want to find, e-commerce companies. And again, like it's not one of the industry codes. There's retail, there's plenty of others, but people they say that, hey, we have developed this technology and we want to target e-commerce companies, maybe retail e-commerce businesses with lots of traffic on the site and so on. So that's why I think we need to do a good job as data vendors so that customers can actually create those ICP profiles that make sense and also have them in their marketing automation and CRM. But yeah, I think standard industry codes, you pick just one, they're quite high level, and you cannot have and use combinations. I think those are the main downsides of standard industry codes.
Okay. Well, if we think about a company has they operate in 7 industries. So how do you know the sort of weights of each industry? So what are they actually focusing on most of the time, and what's sort of only a part of what they do?
Yeah, good question. So companies, I mean, if you take HubSpot, for example, they have Service Hub, they have Marketing Hub, Sales Hub, Operations Hub. It's also SaaS business. They work with marketing people, they work with sales people. So there are lots of labels you can assign to a company like HubSpot: sales, marketing automation, lead gen, sales automation, CRM, marketing automation, and they all make sense. But we came up with the concept of confidence score. And the idea of confidence score is that it's showing the strength of the prediction, because our industry labeling is based on our own AI model. So we have more than 1 million companies in our training data set that we have labeled what are the correct industry labels for those companies. And then the model is using website content, mainly website content, as input data. And then we label those companies based on that. So it's basically analyzing all 900 labels. Let's take HubSpot.com. We analyze, is sales a correct tag or correct label to be attached to HubSpot.com? And then same thing for marketing automation, sales automation. And we always include confidence score. It basically indicates how confident we are in that prediction. And that creates super nice opportunities. So when I go to Vainu's global database, will be released soon. So if I pick SaaS companies, I get 174,000 SaaS companies. But then somebody might argue that Google, which is one of the results, Google, I mean, yes, they have SaaS side of the business as well, but some people would maybe say that it's not as pure SaaS business, so it shouldn't be on the list. But then you can just increase or decrease that confidence threshold. So if you want to receive less companies, but even more obvious SaaS businesses, you can just increase that confidence threshold, meaning that you get less companies. You don't get 174,000 SaaS companies. Maybe you only get 80,000 SaaS companies, but overall quality is higher because based on what they have on the site, it's more obvious that it's a SaaS business. And same approach can be applied to anything. So now we have lots of customers. They're creating really, really powerful and creative ICPs. It might be that, well, it has to be SaaS, like really strongly pure SaaS business. And then there needs to be something regarding human resources, employee benefits, and recruitment. So then you can do that type of searches, and you can basically decide how many companies you want to have, because if you need more, just decrease the confidence slider. If you need less, but better quality, increase it. I think it's super powerful, because then marketing people can decide how many they want to have in their ad campaigns, and SDRs, they know how many they need per day. You can just basically pick and choose, and we provide the best ones. And if you need more, we have more, and we can give them to you. Quality just goes down a little bit based on the model. I don't know if that was explained in a way that it was easy to understand, but as you can see, I'm excited about the model, but that's really how it works.
Okay. Well, I would like to dig deeper into this subject. Like, let's say that you're targeting SaaS companies who also operate in healthcare, and then you get like X amount of companies as a result. So let's say that you get 500 companies, but then you say that this is not enough. I want more. So what do you do at that point? Like if you feel like I want 1,000 companies, so what would you do? Because there must be over 500.
Yep. So then you can do a couple of things. First of all, if you need more, you can either decrease that confidence score threshold for one of the labels. If you do it for healthcare, the companies will be as SaaS as they used to be, but then the healthcare confidence is a little bit lower and the results will go up. Or you can do the same and decrease the confidence threshold for SaaS label, and then companies will be as much healthcare as they were in the initial list, but then they're not as SaaSy as they used to be in the first list. Then also another or third option would be to add other healthcare related labels. You could add medical device, for example, e-health. We have lots of these like modern labels within healthcare and within basically all the other industries as well. So, and then in real time you can look at the results and how many you have. Also, if you know that this is a good example, this is a perfect customer for us, but you're not able and capable of defining the ICP, you can go in and look at that company profile, what type of industry labels they have. And then you might come up with that, hey, this is actually a good way to profile this company. What if I use that industry label as my ICP criteria?
So let's say a person doesn't have access to this type of technology right now. So how do like sales and marketing people typically try to find these sort of specific granular industries like SaaS?
Yeah.
Otherwise,
I mean, obviously software is one of the standard industries that you find in those classification systems. And if you use HubSpot, there's HubSpot Insights engine. It's automatically labeling companies when you create a new company in HubSpot, and software is one of them. So maybe you start with that, and then, I mean, one by one, when you approach these companies, you might have your own manual labeling system, and you check the box if it's SaaS or not. Also, people, I mean, they tend to go to Google and they do a Google search SaaS companies in Sweden, for example. The reason why I know that it's happening a lot, when we created that free list of 1,000 Nordic SaaS businesses. So we just said that we have an Excel file that includes 250 SaaS companies from Finland, and same for Sweden, Norway, and Denmark. We got hundreds of downloads right away. Lots of technology companies, SDRs, AEs, private equity people, VC people. So they also use these lists at the moment because it's not really available in the systems at the moment. But they either start with SaaS software and they label manually, or they Google and try to find lists. I think those are the two most common approaches. Somebody might also do like a website keyword search that all software companies that mention free trial or demo request. I mean, it's a fairly good indication that there's some sort of SaaS recurring business element in the business.
Okay. I'm wondering, you talk a lot about Googling these SaaS companies. I heard that you recently did a Google search that ended up becoming a study. What was that all about?
Yeah. So, I mean, you can try it out yourself if you Google number of SaaS companies in the world. At least for me, the answer that pops up the most is 25,000 companies. So you Google how many SaaS companies are there in the world, then you get the answer, 25,000 companies in the world. So then, of course, what I did, I went into our global database, did exactly the same search. Whole global database, more than 60 million companies in there, and industry label SaaS. And I got 174,000 companies. So that's 7 times more than what Google suggested. So then I felt that, okay, we actually need to do a little bit of research, of course, not manually, but just by looking at the data points. So we started doing a SaaS study, and we'll put it out, I guess, later today. So we analyzed. First, we actually increased confidence threshold so that we were left with roughly 70,000 SaaS companies. Then we used other industry labels so that we started focusing on 30 specific sub-segments: recruitment SaaS, accounting SaaS, payroll SaaS, analytics SaaS, data integration, data visualization SaaS, just to understand like what are the crowded segments. And when you have those segments ready, then you can of course also analyze like, are the companies in that segment, are they large? Like how many of them are micro companies with less than 10 employees? How many of them are US based versus EMEA? How many of them are actually getting like serious traffic? So we looked at the percentage of companies in each segment that are within top 1 million websites worldwide based on traffic. I mean, there's lots of super interesting findings, and I mean, we just put all those findings and all those industry one-pagers into a slide deck, and it's ungated, so you can just go in and check it out. I don't know if it's live yet, but we'll post it, I guess, on LinkedIn later today. But yeah, lots of interesting findings, and it can be done within hours, right? So we didn't have a huge research team doing it. We just went online and started doing search. We broke down the numbers, visualized them in QuickSight, and copy pasted the graphs into a slide deck, and super powerful. We, for example, know that recruiting SaaS, so companies building application tracking systems, I think it was 3,000 companies in that space only. I mean, it's crowded space. Retail SaaS, that's 5,000 companies. Then not tons of sports SaaS companies, surprisingly many focusing on events and so on. What else? Web traffic was interesting. I think there are more than 1.7 billion websites these days worldwide. And if we look at SaaS companies, I mean, many of them are within that top 1 million range. So there's lots of SaaS companies getting lots of traffic. I guess they do good content marketing, and people in general spend more in technology, but that's a huge opportunity. And I mean, all these insights and findings are available in that study.
Excellent. And just to be clear, maybe a small teaser as well, how did you do this study?
Yeah, that's a pretty clear teaser, I guess. We're releasing a new product because Vainu has historically been focused on the Nordics. Now we have a global database and more than 60 million companies. So that's what we used. And all these industry labels and these filters are available. So that's how we did it. We used Vainu global database and did all the analysis. We have this web traffic and industry labels, employee counts, location. We even track very specific things like certain keywords on the website, how many of them are providing free trials, how many of them are having pricing page online. We also looked at actually the most common technologies these companies use. I think there was a couple of SaaS segments where HubSpot has a market share of more than 30%. So more than every third company is using HubSpot in certain segments. But you can also find segments where only 1 out of 10 is using HubSpot. I think Salesforce had one segment where 20% of the businesses are using Salesforce, but you also have quite a few where it's less than 10. We analyzed Hotjar, Intercom, ActiveCampaign, MailChimp, and so on. But I mean, you could pick any technology and do similar analysis in the database. But we haven't really announced it yet, so it will be early September when we actually release the product. But yes, it's a teaser. That's what we used for the research.
So thank you everyone for joining.
That's good. Thanks everyone. Have a good week, and thanks Amir for organizing. Cheers.
Thank you, Mikko.